how you like it, yeah.
Hello, and welcome back to the We Don't Know TV podcast. My name is Leaf. I am your host. This is a podcast where we watch the first episode of a show and talk about it. I missed last week because I was looking into, what you can cover with the whole strike going on. I know that they said that doing reviews is fine, but I was just trying to be more safe and I ran out of time and whatever. So I'm back this week and I was watching a different show that I might cover next week. But until then, we're talking about Into the Badlands. So Into the Badlands originally aired in 2015. The general premise is a mighty warrior and a young boy with supernatural powers search for enlightenment in a ruthless post-apocalyptic America controlled by feudal barons. All right, so let's get right into the episode. It starts off with a voiceover doing basically exposition, and I do and don't like this. I kind of wish that the episode would just let the episode tell us what's going on in this world rather than having like an uninteresting voiceover from some kid. So I'm like, I don't really care for this. I understand that it's like, hey, we want people to really understand what's going on. So it makes sense for them to do it, but I didn't like it. The other thing is so Sonny rolls up, sees some dead bodies, and is like, and there's an axe in the dude's head already. So I was like, okay, this isn't a show that's too afraid to, get into the nitty gritty. I'm like, all right. And then they show us a kid, and I was like, oh, we really get into it. Like, they're gonna show dead kids. Like, this show's about it. Because I've seen this show, but I haven't watched it in a long time. But so Sonny rolls up on some fools, and he's like, and then he puts his sword down, and I was like, okay, it's a little interesting that, I was like, okay, he wants to go in and be like, hey, I don't want no trouble, you know what I mean? As he does, and originally, the dudes are like, ill, you're a clipper, we don't like you people around here. Well, I don't know if it said you people, but you know what I mean? We don't like clippers, and he's like, all right, man, like, listen, I'm looking for somebody. I don't want no trouble. And then they're like, well, we want trouble. And then the fights start happening. And once you get to the action, I feel like this is where this might make or break it for you. Because it is very much old kung fu, like wire work, like flying, almost like everyone's flying around type stuff. And I was immediately like, bro, why did you put your sword down? Like, why are you fighting hand to hand? But I thought the action was dope. I thought the action was dope. I actually like the old kung fu, like flying around a little bit style, so it works for me. But again, I feel like it's kind of like, hey, everyone, this is the tone of our action scenes, and if you don't like that, you might really be like, oh, this isn't for me. So it'd be kind of interesting to hear. So let me know if there's an area for you to, comment or whatever. But the one thing I didn't like about this was it's very much like, oh, he's surrounded by like 8 dudes, and then he fights them one at a time. And it's like, no, you definitely get jumped, but we're not going to worry about it. All right. So, I have to give a positive overall for the action. So this moves right into, after he saves MK, it pretty much goes into the intro. I like shows having an intro, especially if it fits with the show. So for this having like that, like graphic novel, type intro, I think it leads well into an action-based show. So I was like, okay, this is cool, and it's not too long, you're kind of in and out. I'm like, all right, I enjoy this. Sonny's like, yo, MK, why are you still alive? Like, you're the only one. And he's like, I don't know. And it's very much like, oh, how, like, clearly this kid is important, right? He's a main character, but like, how important is he? That being said, no offense to Aramis. I don't know how to say the kid's name. I'm just going to call him by his character. No offense to MK, but I don't like his acting. And I don't like his lines. He very much comes off as that stereotypical teenage character that's like, why are you doing this? Why are you like that? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, okay, you can stop talking. And that's what made me like Sonny, because Sonny's like, all right, are you going to keep talking on this whole time? Or like, well, dude. So that made me like Sonny more, but like dislike NK off the jump. So this is when he takes MK back to his Baron, and you're seeing like their encampment or whatever you want to call it. I thought it was a great use of what's it called? Like nature. Like I loved seeing the whole poppy field. It's all just like red and green, and it's wide open. And when they're riding through the trees, and then you get into the encampment, and you see like this army of dudes, and it's like, oh snap! This feels like, they're going for this like post-apocalyptic, like America isn't around, but we still have some sort of society type thing. And I think it nails it very well. And then the fact that like you see like, oh, but there's still slavery. There's people working those fields, and who knows how long, and if that's where they die or whatever. But I mean, speaking of that, right, you get into this interesting dynamic where somebody's talking to MK, and he's like, yo, listen, you either become a soldier like these kids fighting, or you out in the fields. Like, what I'm saying? It's black or it's one or one or the other here. There's no middle ground. Like, you have no option, or you have two options, but I mean, neither are nice. And this is where he's like, yo, sit down, the Baron's gonna give a speech. And I feel like this is probably the best probably the best part of this episode, because it showcases so many things. You get the Baron. He is that like southern, like charismatic, like, listen, you guys all work for me, but I work for you, and this is all like one big unit, like, you know what I mean? And everyone's all the little kids are like, yeah. But then you see MK looking around, and he's like, yo, you guys are in on this. Like, this guy is kind of, well, he's not saying this, but you can see on his face, like, almost like, yo, this guy's using you. But again, given the circumstances that this show sets up, just in the last couple of minutes, right? It's work the field or be a soldier. So you can imagine, like, the kids are like, well, I want to be a soldier. And then you see Sonny there, head soldier. He's basically the right-hand man of the Baron, who's in charge. And then he's like, show him the tattoos. And then Sonny takes off his jacket, and he's full of tattoos for all of his kills. And you gotta imagine, if you're a kid and you want to be a soldier, and you're like, yeah, this is my thing. You're like, yeah, I want to be like that guy. And the Baron's like, yeah, you do want to be like that guy. He's like, and he's all, he points to the other kids like, yo, maybe you can be this guy. And so I really enjoyed it, because it's like, you can see the manipulation. You can see MK being like, nah, this ain't it. And you can see Sonny just kind of standing there being like, this is my life. Like, I don't know what else to do or where else to go. But yeah, so I felt it was a good intro of the Barons, and a good setup of like, this is where we are, and this is currently where our characters are. Granted, it is only the first episode. Up next, this is where we meet the son, and the son is like, let's he's like, Dad, we should go after the other Baron and like get shit done. And Sonny's like, that's a bad idea, we'll end up going to war, like, don't do that. And it's setting up this dynamic of like, the Baron clearly likes Sonny more than he likes his son, which I didn't like as soon as and maybe it's part of like the way that they write the son's dialogue, but as soon as he comes in, I was like, oh, this feels stereotypical and like bad, and I don't want this. Up next, you see that MK's little pendant or medallion or necklace or whatever you want to call it. It seems like it might be important. I remember him fighting that kid for it. I might be skipping ahead, but yeah, he was fighting that kid for it, and then Sonny sees it, and he's like, yo, my watch has the same symbol. Like, what the hell is this place? So it's already setting up this idea of like, this kid is from somewhere different, and there's some sort of golden city that everyone, maybe it's like a fairy tale or whatever, but I kind of like this small little mystery. They're like, hey, maybe there's a way out of here, but we don't know that yet. All right. At this point, we meet the wife, and it turns out that the Baron is sick, and the wife is like, yo, you gotta start training our son. One, he's your son, and two, like, you're sick. We don't know how, we don't know what you got, how long you got, like, put it in the family. And he's like, nah, he ain't the guy. Like, Sonny is the guy. And she's like, yo, you've already given up on our son once. Like, why are you doing it twice? It's like, oh, okay. So clearly there's a little animosity in the family. Dad doesn't like his son. Usual squabble. But the fact that she says, like, you already failed him once is like, oh, what happened there? Hopefully we'll get more. Interesting. Little mysteries. Then Oh, okay. So at some point, the son goes to Sunny, right? And what I found interesting about this conversation, which could have been generic, but I liked a little bit, is he's like, listen, we need to take out this other Baron. My dad likes you more than me. Okay, I'm not gonna play games. You need to talk to him. He's sick. We all know it. Like, we gotta start making moves. And Sunny's like, nah, we can't do that. And he's like, listen, man, we gotta do this. And then it takes that little turn at the end where he's like, I'm gonna keep this medallion. Like, fuck you, Sunny. And walks away. I was like, there was something good there. And then you ruined it a little bit. So I was like, just stay in the good, you know? We find out that the Baron got more than one wife. You know what I'm saying? He got a little young thing on the side. And the first wife is watching. She ain't looking happy. And the son's like, yo, you don't look happy. And then she's like, no, it is what it is. Like, he always needs me. And then she seems very confident. But she seems confident in a way that's, like, actually confident and not, like she's faking it. So I was like, so do you care? How much do you care that he has another wife? Like, it's not very clear. I wish it was a little more clear on her intentions. I'm sure that, you know, the season will get more into it. But again, we're just talking about the first episode. Turns out Sunny can't read. Which is, I found very... It's one of those things where it's intriguing but kind of makes sense because, you know, this is almost like a closer to a Western, or like a Western world, I guess you would say, like cowboys and all that. So it's like, yeah, you probably don't think about skills that you'd need, like reading, but the fact that he can't read is really not a big deal because we know Sunny is the guy to like beat people up and like get shit done. So the fact that he can't read is like, but you know, in our world, it feels so odd, like you don't know how to read. But again, it's this interesting thing of like, no, we don't need to read, right? We have soldiers and we got farmers. Like, so technically this isn't a skill that is required. But it is interesting that he's been clearly, because she's like, oh, last couple months, he's been putting in work to learn how to read. Also, he had a girlfriend. He seemed very, you know, like lone wolf. So for him to have a girlfriend's interesting. And then she's like, I'm pregnant. And he's like, that's not bueno. Well, and I don't blame him because he's like, yo, you're gonna get killed. And like I said, he's already acting like a lone wolf. So like being like, oh, now we're like, we don't know their relationship enough to know like how much he actually cares for her. But he's like, this is a bad thing. Like, this only ends bad. And she's like, well, let's run away. And then this is like, oh, maybe that Golden City, secrets. But he's like, nah, we don't. That's it's not gonna happen. So I was like, okay, but I feel like adding a pregnancy in the show is like, oh, we're doing this episode 1. Like, you're not gonna wait till. I feel like other shows would have done that, like season 2, or like left that in the series finale, like, oh, everything's going well, and then she's like, I'm pregnant, and he's like, oh no, and then, you know, cuts the credits. But hey, man, well, I guess they're, you know, off the rip. I wouldn't say that I like it, if I had to be honest, though. Anyways, another small thing. There's a lot of small things in this episode that makes me, like, interested. Is Sunny's going to get more tattoos from killing those dudes in the beginning. And his tattoo artist is like, yo, you used to be, like, ecstatic to come up in here. And now you're just kind of chilling. Like, it's almost like whatever. And he's like, I feel like all those kills rack up on you, man. He's like, I don't know. I guess it is what it is. And it's like, oh. And it makes sense because, I mean, his back is filled. So you have to wonder, like, how often are Clippers really get into altercations, you know? But I imagine, yeah, taking a bunch of lives continuously is just kind of like, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, you're like, you know, it's almost like going to work. And you're like, okay, here we go again. Like, all right. So we'll see if that... It would be interesting if the show continues to, what is it I'm looking for? Expand on that idea of him being like, you know, I'm tired of the killing. Like, does he care, or is he just doing it now? So now we move into the nighttime. MK is going to brush his teeth or something like that. He gets jumped by that one kid again. Kid cuts him. MK's eyes go all black. You're like, oh fuck. He kicks him into the mirror. And then it's like, okay, cool, he has powers, like, what's he gonna do? And then a glass flies, he catches it, throws it right in the kid's eye. I was like, damn. Again, going back to like the beginning of the show with the dead kid, I was like, this show is about violence. Sunny sees it, He takes him. I guess he passed out, MK. So he wakes up and he's like, what the fuck was that, my guy? And he's like, yeah, I've had power since I was little. Anytime someone cuts me, like, I black out, and then I wake up and everyone's dead. So I found it interesting that he already had powers, and he knew he had powers. So it's almost a double-edged sword, because it's like, all right, it's cool, you have this thing, but like, I feel like if you have powers where every time you wake up, a bunch of people are dead, and in the middle of the episode, when they're like, yeah, we're going to turn you into a soldier, this is where you put more hints of like, no, like, I don't like fighting, like, no, I don't like blood, it like freaks me out, or whatever. Like, there should have been more hints in his character of like, I don't like these powers, I don't know where they come from, things are bad when they happen, you know what I mean? It should have been almost like a Bruce Banner, like Hulk type thing, like, I have powers, but things get destroyed when I use mine. So like, I try to stay away from conflict. So I felt like that was a part missing on this show's part. But yeah, so we find out that his mother is missing, which is like, okay. And then we found out that the place is called Azra, the little golden place that's on the symbols. And he's like, Sonny's like, oh, I got a baby on the way. Well, he doesn't say that, but, I got a baby on the way. How do you find said place? And he's like, I don't remember. And it's like, okay. But clearly we're setting up, like, that Azra is going to be a place. And then what happens to him? I don't remember. Oh, I guess they go their separate ways. Anyways, then Sonny goes into town for some reason. I don't remember why. But then he gets jumped. And this is when we get another action scene. And it becomes apparent. It becomes I forget what I was gonna say. It becomes blatantly clear that the action is style over substance, because the way that they're swinging their swords around is very like, it reminds me of like Revenge of the Sith, like like spinning the lightsabers around, like almost like batons more than swords. So, and they're just like swinging willy-nilly, but when he gets a kill, it's dope. But like all the in between is kind of like, this feels like, there's like too much movement going on, and I wish it was more choreographed of like actual strikes as opposed to like just like wildly swinging. So because it's style over substance, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I like it as much as I want to. I wish it was more, not slower, but more precise. You know what I mean? Especially in a world full of, trained killers in an apocalypse. I feel like it's very much like, any fight can be your last, and we're fighting like one-man army constantly. And again, 6 people with swords, and he's taking them on one by one almost. So it's like, I don't know. It could go either way for me. And then, the Baron comes out after he kills everybody, and he's like, I should kill you. And she's like, you wish you could. Because again, going back to the early episode, if you did, start a war. Although I feel like, granted, only first episode, if you take off the leader, the other encampment, I assume, would kind of fall apart. You know what I mean? So I feel like it would be even more of a good point to take out the leader. But I'm not a leader, all right? So don't listen to my advice. But yeah, she's like, bring me the boy. And he's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. And she's like, I think you might want to. And then they go their separate ways. And it's like, okay, how does she know that? Where are you getting this information from, everybody? Meanwhile, MK goes to steal his little necklace back. And then I thought it was weird that like in the middle of the episode, they introduced Bale, like another kid that was like, hey, listen, you protect me, I'll protect you. And then he's like, don't do it. And he's like, I gotta go do it. And he's like, okay, be careful. And it's like, what was the whole point of introducing the other kid? Like, you could have just had another random kid being like, where are you going? He's like, don't worry about it. Like, it just felt like a small thread that they were setting up just to be like, nope, doesn't matter. So MK gets caught by the son, Ryder. The wife sees the Baron's wife, the mom. She sees the pendant. It seems like she's like, oh, the Golden City. It's like, oh, how much does she know? And then they're like, yeah, we're gonna execute you in the morning. So have a good sleep. And then, for whatever reason, Sonny comes in. He's like, all right, I'm gonna let you, or he's like, listen, you know what I mean? Like, you're gonna die in the morning. And then, again, going back to the kids acting, he's like trying to be sad, and I'm like, yo, you gotta put more heart into this, my guy. You just kind of like, oh no, I'm gonna die. It's like, yo, you're going to die. Granted, I'm not an actor, but you know what I mean. I wasn't feeling that part. And then he's like, could you find my mom for me? And it's like, bro, this is an apocalyptic world. You can die any which way. Why would this random guy go find your mom? So I liked when he was like, no, I can't find your mom for you. And then he cuts him loose and he goes, you go find your mom. And it felt very dumb. Not dumb, but like, I was like, why is Sonny letting him go? It seems like the only connection they have is he's like, oh, I have this thing from the Golden City. I don't remember. You have this thing from the Golden City. Well, it's not called the Golden City. I'm just going to keep calling it the Golden City. And we're similar, so I'm going to let you go, even though I've been a loyal soldier my entire life. And it's like, why would you do that? Also, in the beginning of the episode, right, MK was in a trunk, right? He was already captured by some dudes. And then he was going to go run away. And Sonny's like, listen, you're not going to make it far. You're not going to make it out there. Just stay with me, okay? So for now, for him to cut him free and be like, all right, kid, go out there and find your family. It's like, you already established that you have no faith because the world is so reckless that he could just be out there on his own. It's not like, you know, we flash forwarded like 6 months and MK's been training and he has like martial arts skills and like, all right, maybe he can handle himself. You're just throwing the kid back out there in the wild. And it's like, all right, maybe if he gets cut, he can, you know, kill everybody if need be. But again, we started off with him in a trunk, so clearly he doesn't know how to handle himself. So it just felt really dumb. Like, I was like, why are we doing that? And then as he lets him go, the wife sees, so she probably got something on him just in case she needs it. And then the episode ends with Baron telling him, like, yo, Sonny, my guy, you should move closer to my house. And he's like, I don't know if I should do that. And he's like, no, you should do that because I want you to. And it's like, okay. Oh, and then there's that part earlier where he was spying on him. So it's like, oh, is this a double-edged thing? Or does he trust him more? I don't know. The second wife, turns out she's also banging the son. And it's like, oh, that's going to be problematic. Your dad already doesn't like you. I feel like this is a bad move, my God. And that's, yeah, just kind of where the episode ends. I think Sonny is like looking at the watch and he's like, why can't I remember? This is where we get into my rating system. It's one and done. Give it a chance. I'm in. Okay. So I would have to give this first episode, give it a chance. I do think there are a lot of dramatic threads and a lot of small secrets. I'm like, okay, like, what is this city about? Like, is Sonny, like, who is Sonny aligned with? What does he want anymore? Because it seems like he's kind of like falling out of the soldier he used to be. You got this crazy family dynamic of like two wives and the son who wants to impress the dad, but the dad doesn't want to impress the son, and he's also sick. And it's like, okay, I can see. And you know, the action is again more flashy than I guess more choreographed. I don't know, the good, like, grounded, I guess. So there are small things where I'm like, okay, I can see the episodes improving. I can imagine a second season being better than this if done right, you know. So I would watch another episode for sure. I don't know if I'd watch the whole season. Spoilers, I watched all 3 seasons, so clearly it must have got better, at least for me at the time. Yeah, I have to give it an I'm in. I wouldn't say I'm like, or no, I have to give it a chance. I wouldn't give it an I'm in just because there are a lot of things that are generic, and there are, you know, some writing issues and just some things that I'm like, I can see this falling off. Even though I did watch all 3 seasons, I really don't remember it like that, other than like one, I think the villain in season 3, no spoilers, but the villain in season 3, like something about their, something about the way that character was written. It was like, oh, you're doing that? That's fucking weird. But that's all I'll say. So if you're interested, I say keep watching. But yeah, this is where I'm going to leave this one. So I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to get back on track, so I'll be posting every Tuesday. I will talk to you guys next time. All right.